We have my friend Jennings Smith on, an amazing investor. Where are you? You're in South Carolina, right?
Yep, Charleston
Charleston,
area, Somerville, right outside of Charleston. Yep,
with a portfolio over 61 million.
that's right. Growing
What
every
was it?
day.
Is it a little bit more now since you bought that one last month?
Actually, yes. I need to throw that in there. So, 63 million or so now. So,
Um, so, bro, let's talk about what you were talking about earlier, Troy. I don't want to buy more apartments. Like, like you're not trying to like really push hard into it as big as you were.
well, and I wouldn't say I don't want to buy more. As far as I always want to buy more. Like we're all deal junkies, right? So we say, no, I don't want to do anything, and then something comes across our desk, and we're like, yeah, let's do it. But my goal, I guess, is not to have 5,000 units. Like right now with the self storage and the apartments, we got like about 1,500 units or whatever, about 1,000 apartments and 400 or 500 self storage units. And it's just a lot. Like now that we've gotten to this point, it's a lot of meetings every week. It's maintaining the portfolio. It's making sure everything's on track. A lot of K1s and tax returns and et cetera, et cetera. And I just see like that's a lot to keep on going on this track. And so I'm just open to other opportunities, I guess, is all I mean by that. Like I'm not just wanting to focus on growing it to 5,000 units or something.
Right. I mean, do you have a cash flow? Did you just hit your cash flow goal too? To where you're like, yeah, I hit it.
Yeah, I mean we're doing well with the cash flow too. And I like that. So that's part of it. Um and also it's the market's heated too, right? So I don't want to make a dumb move. So apartments are hard to come by right now. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't good deals out there. There are, but they're not as easy to uncover as they were a couple of years ago. So just trying to be careful, and we're dispositioning 4 properties this year. So like I'll probably want to buy 3 or 4 or 5 more once I disposition those. It's just
Okay.
real estate cyclical.
Yeah.
I think
So
everybody goes through acquisition and disposition phases.
I feel that. What were you doing like before this? You were developing houses or was it a construction company? Like how'd you even get into this?
No, dude, yeah, I was like building custom homes, but and also just like remodeling bathrooms, remodeling kitchens, building porches, additions, pretty much anything to pay the bills. I did that for like 16 years. When I was 19, I started I got my builder's license, and then I went to college, but I would build during the summertime. And when I graduated, I just kept building, and really got kind of trapped by that business. Like it made me a good living. I could make 150 to 200 grand a year, but it was just took all my time, and I really got sick of it. It's not a scalable model, at least not the way I was doing it.
So like in like real developments, because I see develop. I mean, I look at when I hear building, I think of like J.R. Horton.
That is scalable, right? So they have their 5 or 6 building plans that they do, and they just do them over and over and over, and they clear out a lot. They bulldoze everything. You got your selections, and if you don't like the house, right, then they'll just sell it to the next person. So they're really not building the house for you. Like maybe you put down a deposit, whatever, but
Yeah.
it's not your house. Whereas with custom construction, like it's your land, it's your money, you're paying for the house, and if you don't like it, well, then I got to fix it, right? Or if something doesn't come out the way you think, or we're going over budget, it's all on me. And that's what's so difficult about custom construction is every job is completely different. The conditions are different, the clients are different, the expectations are different, the money, the budgets, and there's nothing scalable about it.
Okay. And is that so? What is a spec home, bro? I still don't even know the difference. Is a spec like it pretty much custom homes?
A spec, yeah, it's a spec home can be a very, very basic home. A spec home can be a very, very high end, but it's built speculating that you're going to be able to sell it. You're speculating versus custom is a client is
Person reached out to you.
prepaying you for it. So there's much less risk with custom stuff. My business was not risky at all. But and a lot of builders went under in 2008, 9, 10 from doing a lot of spec homes where they got hung out to dry. You know, the market dried
Yeah.
up and they couldn't move their product, and the custom builders were fine and the remodelers were fine. It's a super stable business and people always are going to need renovations. But as far as scalability, everything is tied to the client expectations. And now I did join a franchise and their process was like line everything out. Like you got to bid out, hard quote everything, all the budgets totally approved before you swing the first hammer. And that made things a lot better. But at that point, I was burnt out with clients and I was burnt out with construction. I wanted to do something different.
Well, one thing that I've learned like just over time is custom is never scalable. And if you're gonna
Mm,
if you're gonna do something custom, you got to charge a super high ticket in order for it to be worth your time, right? Because you can't productize.
absolutely.
J.R. Horton productized 5 homes, and then they just tear down a bunch of land and build up those 5 things over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. And the guys that do well in custom building are the ones that are building the $5 and $10 million homes. However, as you can imagine, every single custom builder is trying to go after those clients. Like it's very, very
Mhm.
competitive, very cutthroat at the highest level because those are the guys that are really making the money. Is the top 1-2%. So everybody wants to be those
Yeah.
guys.
Okay. What? So did you get into flipping and then get into apartments? Like, how did that transition go? And who gave you money for the first freaking build that you did?
So the first build I ever did was my dad bought a defunct subdivision. So there was like 19 lots left, and he was a realtor and
Hmm.
was listing it for the bank. The bank had foreclosed it, and he could not move this property. I mean, the bank kept slashing the price, slashing the price. He ended up buying this thing for like 20 grand for 19 lots, and this was back in 2006 or something. Um, or no, this was in like the late 90s. It was very early, but anyways, he held a couple of these lots and he had one, and he was building rental homes. He taught me build rental homes, and that's how you're going to retire. You get 10, 12, 15 rental homes, you're set, you're good. So he was building rental homes and he said, will you build me this rental home? And he paid me $15 an hour to build him a rental home. And at the end, he gave me like a $6,000 or $7,000 bonus, which then he promptly took back and said, that's your half of college tuition. So he, he's like, you got to pay for your own college year. So, which was good. I didn't mind. I appreciated the opportunity. But once I built that, then I had a product that I could show people, right? Because I had built a house, and then the next lady, she liked that house. She said, "Will you build me the same house?" I built her the house the following summer, and I made like 30 grand. So at 19, 20 years old, I'm going back to Clemson, and you know, I had 10 or 15 grand left over from paying my books and some tuition.
Right.
But now by Christmas break, that money was gone. I mean, it was just boom. I went straight to the bars. I mean, it was gone.
Bro, why did you keep going to college? Like, why? I want to know, like, why it didn't trigger, like, well, if I just build all year, I'll make more money than I would in college. Like, what were you
you
going to
know,
college for?
yeah, absolutely, and that's true. And I did after my sophomore year, I did almost quit. I went to my dad and I said, "Look, I want to quit. I can make money. This is what I'm going to do anyways." And he was like, "Well, you started it and you should finish things that you start." And I do think that that's good advice. And I think that I would have been fine whether I had quit or not, but I don't know. I just thought, you know what I did? I started this. I better finish it.
What'd you
So
end up going to school for?
business management.
So the
So I
shit
was,
you were doing, like, you could have probably taught the classes.
you know, I'll say Stratton, it took me a long time to really turn into a business owner because I was good at construction. I was good at swinging the hammer. I was good at pushing crews. I was good at motivating. I was good at working hard. But as far as like running businesses and understanding how that worked and the paperwork side and the marketing side and sales and all that, like I really was not a good business person, I wouldn't say.
But did they teach you that in college? Like, did they teach you
Well,
sales,
no.
marketing,
No.
right? Like,
No. Come on. You got to be real. Be real. No, I mean, I'm not going to heavily encourage my kids to go to college. I'm not going to discourage them, um, but I'm not going to. It's not like a requirement. Um, I will say it was something that, it's kind of like everybody does that. Or at least when I was a kid, it was like most people were doing that. Now it's not even in the last 10, 15 years, it's just not as popular as it was. Which is crazy. Things are shifting.
Well, I mean, now you can make a lot of money on TikTok. You know, like you can say, I want to be a creator, and you have Mr. Beast who's making millions of dollars a year making YouTube videos.
I know. I mean, and that's why I see the future of that. And that's why I got out of construction, was I just saw that there wasn't future in that. And so I saw the scale in multifamily and the commercial real estate, and I see the scale in social and podcasting and creating content and just putting it out there, and the influence that can get you. It's unlimited, right? So the return on
Exactly.
investment, even though it's slow and you don't see it, I mean, for a long, long time, um, when it hits, it really can change your life big time.
Bro, I like you were talking about it the other day in the call, but like it's the slowest thing I do, but it's what I know is going to give me the biggest return over time.
Yes. Yes, I wish it was faster, but nothing worth building is going to get built overnight.
Yeah. So what was the trigger that you're like, man, all right, I'm done with this building. I'm going to start doing apartments. And then like, how'd you even get your first deal in that aspect?
So I bought my first rental house when I was still doing construction. I saw my dad, and I saved up, I think, 20 grand. And I just bought $100,000 rental home, put down 20%, and it was a stretch. But yeah, I bought it for like 96 grand. Last year I sold it for 230. So I mean, it was a great investment. Held it for 5 years. But that one I just did straight up. I saved the money, bought it, nothing creative about it. I bought a couple trailers that way. My roommate in college, his dad owned a mobile home park, and he taught me how to do seller financing, where buy an old trailer, fix it up, and sell it owner finance, and then you don't have to maintain it like a landlord. And
Mhm.
I did that probably 6 or 7 times. And I'm looking at my portfolio, and I'm like, man, I'm just really not making enough money. I'm having kids, I'm married, stuff's getting more expensive. And to go from making 150 grand a year to 170 grand a year, like, it's not going to matter. It's not going to
Exactly.
move the needle. And I gotta, I gotta do something different. And a couple things. I mean, I had a really difficult client. Like, this lady just put me through the ringer. I think she had some mental issues for sure. She tried to sue me. Very difficult to build her house. And when I finished that, I was like, I'm done with this business. I've got to do something differently. And that kind of kicked off this trajectory of looking into real estate, because I'm seeing it working for my dad, my family. I'm seeing the rental houses and trailers that I've bought are working. And so I bought Michael Blank's course online, the Ultimate Apartment Buying Guide, for like a 997. And I did nothing with it. Like, I watched it and was like, this is interesting, but I didn't do anything with it for like 2 years. Like, I just sort of like poked around on the MLS and LoopNet and pretended like I was doing something. Um, but I got serious when I had joined this franchise, and as I got higher up in the franchise, they kind of put their claws into me a little bit, where it was just like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and I was, it was what I wanted because it was more passive, and I was growing my region. But I realized, man, like, I want to. I'm not happy. Like, this is not
Yeah.
what I want to do. And so I got serious, and I found a 12 unit, and I got the guy to seller finance me. It was losing money. It was a great deal. It was like 250 grand for a 12 unit out in the middle of nowhere, North
Ooh,
Carolina. Yeah.
that's
I
a good
thought the
thing.
same thing, but when I went and looked at it, like, it was in good shape. It really was. It needed a utility bill back, and I needed to raise rents a little bit. And 18 months later, I sold it for 410 grand. And that was a good deal for the next guy too. So
Where the hell did you find it? Like that?
it's a town called Williamston, North Carolina. There was like 5,000 people in there. And there are people telling me, "Oh, don't buy it. That's too small of a market. There's nothing there." blah blah blah. And but yeah, I raised the money. That was my first syndication. I got the seller to seller financing, so I didn't have to get a loan. And I did my plan. I found my manager, and it worked. And I was like, "Holy crap, this works! I can do this." And I was kind of rolling from there.
You syndicated 200K?
90K down payment. JV, sorry, not
Oh,
syndicated.
I
Yeah,
was like, that sounds like a lot of effort for.
no, no, no. The next deal we did, um, well, the next deal was like a trailer park, and it was same thing, JV. But then the next deal was a 19 unit. We did syndicate. We had like three or four investors that threw in the money. So,
Okay. What was your number one learning experience from that first deal?
mm. I will say this is a little one, but it might be helpful for people. The RUBS, like the RUBS, Resident Utility Billing Billbacks or
Yeah.
system or what, it's really not that good of an idea. Like everybody's all about RUBS and like how you're gonna portion out everybody's bill by their usage and that. Just charge them like $35 or $50 or whatever and be done with it. Like it was such a pain to manage their water usage and bill them. And you can't evict for non-payment of utilities either. So like learning
Yeah.
experience is just tell them a low price for the rent plus 35 or $45 for the water. And then when they sign the lease, it's just that's the number, one lump sum, and it includes water. Like don't try to get too cute with the utility bill back stuff.
So you don't do any rubs on any of your units?
We do water fees on all of them, but we don't do utility fill backs. So um, it's much cleaner and easier. And I learned that, and I also learned like how NOI changes everything. Where because there was the current owner, they had a dumpster on site, but when I dug into it, they were actually paying for city trash. Like they didn't have any trash cans on site, but they were able to have trash cans, right? They had paid the taxes so they could have 12 trash cans for these 12 units. So they're paying the city taxes and they're paying for a dumpster. So I'm like, all right, get rid of the dumpster. I call the city. I get 12 cans out there. We build a little, U-shaped wooden fence thing around to hold the 12 cans. And boom, I save a couple $1,000 in NOI. And on a $250,000 property, that's a lot of money. So
Right.
I did that. I started getting the water, and I'd raised rents like $25, and that almost, increased the value of the building from 250 to 410. That's what, like 40-50%. So little changes. I saw that, and I saw, man, what if this was a 100 unit or a 300 unit? Like if and I make little changes, it can
Yeah.
really rack up big time. So
What's been your biggest fuck up so far in everything you've done?
um, probably I took a somewhat of a predatory loan, like a bad loan, on an apartment deal where they had offered to roll all the payments for the whole first year into like the loan, right? So we could like
Yeah.
finance the first year's payments,
Uh-huh.
which sounded great, right? It's more leverage. We're doing a heavy value add lift, and so that cash flow is tight in the beginning, and so but in the fine print, I mean, there's like pretty hefty origination fees. There's construction management fees of $1,500 a month. There's $700 a month like loan management fee, or just this BS fees that these shark lenders have in there that regular banks don't. And then they have all these holdbacks, and then they're really really difficult with releasing the money on the construction budgets. And we got behind on with the first contractor. We ended up having to fire him, and we wasted about 3 or 4 months. And so on a loan like that, it was just like uh, we got behind the 8 ball, and we realized we're never going to pull out of this, right? We're never going to get this thing turned around because these payments are about to jump way up once our
Yeah.
interest once that year burns off. Oh, and then like a week before closing, they said, "We're actually not going to give you a year. We're only going to give you 10 months because of some coverage ratio that didn't whatever, like." And you're trying to close next week, so they got you over a barrel. So I'm like, okay, well, now we have to sell the property, right? We can't refinance, and it's a good property. It's a property that I wanted to keep long term. The good news is we're still fine. We bought it at a great cost basis in a hot market, and we're gonna beat our pro forma. So it's okay, but it was one that I wanted to refinance and hold, and I'm gonna lose it. As far as I'm gonna sell it, we're still gonna make, we'll make a 1.5 to 2 million profit. So it's not like
Yeah.
a massive loss, but I
Keep it.
wanted that one in my portfolio. Yeah, yeah.
So in all reality, like they knew what they were doing and they're planning on taking that bitch back. Like
No, I don't think so. But
that's what it
it's
sounds like, bro. Like with those, because like when I hear a value add and like, okay, no payments for a year, I was like, bro, that sounds like the best terms ever. Then you throw in all those fees, and there is just additional fees that are probably higher than the mortgage during that amount of time. Like, I don't know, bro. It sounds like they knew what they were doing, and they're like, yeah, we'll get it, and we'll just. I mean, I know banks aren't in the business of owning property, but that sounds
yeah,
too predatory.
yeah. I mean, it was my fault. We had a lot going on at the time. We were closing a couple deals at once, and
Mhm.
I just didn't dig into the terms of it as well and deeply as I should have. And it was kind of those things where if one thing goes wrong, you're okay, but when two, three, four things go wrong, it's like, whoa, and that's where I think you have to be careful. Where you see syndicators going down, it's not when one deal goes off the rails, it's when three or four deals go off the rails at the same time. They get a massive cash crunch and they just can't come back from it. So
What was your biggest lesson from that?
biggest lesson was, um if it seems too good to be true, then look a little deeper. I wish that I had just gone with my straight up blue collar bank, that I had done all my deals that, done 70-75% leverage, 5% interest, 25-year AM, 1 year interest only. That's like my standard deal. And I wish I'd just done that deal again. Um, but, and then secondly, I preach as a syndicator, like, raise money and have dry powder, raise the capital, keep your money in the bank, because you know it's going to hit the fan sometimes. And man, I'm glad, like, I'm really glad that we had the capital and cash to bankroll some of those tighter spots. And you can sell equity, you can do that, and you can raise cash and capital, but it's good to just have, like, hey, everybody, we need each pitch in 30 grand, we throw in 100 grand, and we can keep the deal going for the next 3-4 months, and until we can get the occupancy higher, or we can sell it, or we can refinance it,
Uh-huh.
or whatever we do. And if and we've had partners in deals that were broke, right? They couldn't throw in money, and when they can't throw in money, like,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Because it's your investors. Like, you're going to just let the, like, you got to have money. Like, you don't have to have money to buy real estate, but if you're going to own a lot of real estate, you're going to have a lot of debt, you better have money in the bank. You better have money.
And that's not what anybody really talks about on the outside. Right? Like, oh, do it for no money down. You can do it with no money in your bank account, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I
All
mean,
right.
you can, and if you're starting with small, it's fine, but when you make profits, like, hang on to them. Don't keep rolling them into the next deal and re-leveraging yourself and re-leveraging yourself. I don't think.
That's a good one to know. So one thing that I've learned as of late is that most of these syndicators at this point in time are just fee shops. Like they just do a deal to make the money off the fees.
Yeah.
And it's like a mediocre deal. And that's somewhat what's driving the prices up. Because like the yields are shitty anyways. They aren't really going to make any money. The way they're going to make their money is off the fees.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a model, and I mean, I don't fault those guys for doing that. I don't, that's not my model, but it does, I mean, they are returning a lot of times 15% IRR, which is not bad
Yeah,
for
it's not
real
bad.
estate. Um, they're giving away most of the deal to the investors. They're getting 70% or 80% or whatever. Um, But yeah, it's kind of like the investors feel like they're getting a lot, but then when you really strip away all the fees, it's like really it's more like a 50-50 deal or even 60-40 if you add those fees back in. And they
Exactly.
don't see that, but it's okay. I mean, I structure my deals. Most of them have been done with a heavier pref toward the investor, but we get a heavier piece of the equity because we're getting them their money back within 2 years or less. But that the fee game is where it doesn't work is when the market is stagnant or the market doesn't cooperate or it doesn't keep going up, right? So a lot of these syndicators, they're doing fine and they're even beating their pro formas and they're coming out smelling like roses because it's just the market's been hot. I mean, even look at it's helped me. Like look at my deal that I was telling you I was
Hmm.
struggling with. I'm still going to look like a genius because the market went up and I can still sell it for way more than I bought it for. But if I was in a stagnant market or a declining market, I might not be in such good shape. And that's where I'm trying to just be disciplined and buy the stuff that's on sale, buy the stuff that has the value add. But the heavy lift value add stuff is risky, right? It does have risk. So the fee game stuff, they could argue, well, yeah, but we're not having to take on all this construction risk. We don't
Yeah.
have vacancy risk. Like it's so I don't want to say it's wrong. I just my background is more like, hey, this makes sense without like financially engineering it and everything has to just go perfectly. So I kind of I stay away from those deals for the most part.
Okay. How much equity are you usually taking in yours? Since you're all mainly value add, are you doing are you keeping 70 like the Brats model where you keep 70, they get 30, but they get their money back and then they get a equity chunk in like a year and a half to 2 years?
Yeah, I mean that's the dream. That's what we try to do, and most of the deals are structured that way. Um, I've done deals where it's 60-40 with no pref or 50-50 no pref. Um, but if I can get you your money back in less than 2 years and you can hit, um, I can afford to pay you 10 to 12% on the money while it's in the deal, and then you're going to retain that equity forever, and you're going
It's
to
a
get a piece.
no-brainer.
Right. I mean, like investors will go for that all day long. So, and it's because it's just as good, if not better, returns as them getting 70% of a crappy deal. So it's like, I don't see why I should give away 70% of a deal that I'm going to take on all the risk, do all the work, and get them all their money back in 18 months. Like, I don't think you should give away that much equity for that.
Yeah, I don't either because as we're moving forward, like we're going to raise cash like these deals. Like I like the Brats model, but the only way that model really works is if you buy a good enough value add where you can get them their cash back in 2 years.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing that you can do, so I tried to, because the pushback on that is, yeah, well, you can't find anything like that now, right? Like, it's not
Yes
possible.
and no.
Oh. Well, yes and no. Because they are out there. Um, but I think you need more tools in the tool bag. So what we've been teaching people, we have a mentoring program. But what we've been teaching people is like, okay, number one, the burr. If that works, awesome. If that doesn't work, then try it as a flip. Like, what does it look like to sell it in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years? Okay, what does it look like with higher equity to the investors and no preferred return? Like, can you make the deal happen at that point? Now, what does it look like with giving away 70% of the equity to the investors and paying a lower preferred return? That's even worse deal. But if they're trying to make a deal happen, it's important to build momentum, right? If they can safely do a deal, they should do a deal. Now, once you get to a point like me or you may look at it and be like, it's just not worth my time. It is worth their time, right? They don't have anything going on. They're trying to get their first couple deals done. They need the
Yeah.
experience, they need to get their feet wet, they need to make something happen. Um, and then I look at like seller financing. So you can go about seller financing where it's can the seller give you 100% or 90% or 95% seller financing? Well, then you can pay more, and you only have to raise a little bit of capital, so you only have to give away not as much equity. Or if they'll do like a seller carryback where they get 70% of the money and they loan you 30%, now you don't have any investors. paying them 4 or 5% interest. They're getting a premium. And now I don't care if that deal, I don't care about the IRR on that deal because I don't have any investors. I'm just like, can I safely amortize debt? Yes, boom, I'm buying it. Right. That's
Right.
the only question
Yeah.
that I have. Can I amortize the debt? Because I know rents will go up over 5 years. I know the property value will go up over 5 years. I know I'll pay that mortgage down over 5 years. I might do okay, but I might get really, really lucky too. I might go way up in rents and in value. And so that opens up the floodgates, right? Where you can pay way more than when you were looking at, I got to be all in for 65 or 70 cents on the dollar. I got to refinance everybody out in 18 months. Like the swing is massive when you unlock that strategy.
All right. So the other day when I called you about the fucking owner finance deal that we were putting together,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how you'd get around this. And this is the most interesting deal I've heard of so far. So it's 90,000 square feet of storage, but it is all
Okay.
containers. The containers are classified as chattel assets, so they're fully depreciatable in the first year. And so
When you
the
say
way,
containers, it's like a parking lot with a bunch of
like, no, like
freestanding.
there's like pads, like they've like laid down cement, and then like it looks like actual buildings, but it's just containers,
Okay.
like the
Okay.
big shipping containers. And so with that, what the guy would do is he'd go to his bank every time he'd get a tax bill. He'd go to his bank, he'd leverage against his farm, get a loan for the containers, and then depreciate the containers year one. But he owns it free and clear. But he's like, well, I want to do owner finance. And then his accountant was like, well, we can't do owner finance because you'll get depreciation recapture and you have to pay several $1 million in taxes in year one.
Hmm.
How would you be able to structure that? Like, we have a way that we're gonna do it that like it's the sketchiest shit ever. He's gonna donate it to a church and the church is gonna sell it to us and it's like legal somehow.
Wow. Okay. So would you say it's similar to, because I gotta say I'm not super familiar with like a movable shipping container as an asset, but is it similar to, I mean, it's similar to just an apartment building or self-storage that's a fixed, right? As far as he's depreciated it, and now when he sells it, he's gonna have to recapture all that depreciation.
Exactly.
So from my understanding, if he owner finances, he's not going to have to recapture all that depreciation year one. Like he's only going to recapture and have to pay the taxes on it as the money comes in, which is the benefit of the owner finance. You can spread it out over 3 or 4 or 5 years. But the
So,
CPA is saying different.
and I like went and read tax code the other day, and it said if we do an installment sale,
Uh huh.
the full depreciation recapture is due year one. I was like, then why are these people doing owner finance deals? Because that doesn't make sense. So like, what am I missing?
Huh. Yeah. So if they depreciated it, and is he doing some sort of like accelerated or bonus depreciation?
Well, so that's what a chattel asset. It depreciates year one. Like you just write it off. So I guess it would be like accelerated. Would be the only way I would say. I don't know what bonus depreciation would be in that.
Could you make him like a partner in the deal so that he can get
They're
uh
80.
but hear me out, because you can do something where they own a small percentage of your LLC. Like let's say your LLC buys this and he owns 1% or 2%.
Uh-huh.
However, in the operating agreement, he gets 50% or 80% of the depreciation if you don't need it. I don't know if you need it or not, but
I mean that's like the best part about it, right? For me at least. Like it'll be a good deal as far as like actual cash flow and for
hmm.
investors, but the depreciation you get from that deal I think is amazing, though I wouldn't want to give that up.
Okay. So you need that. You need to
Yeah.
keep that. Well, that is something that
That's a good idea though. I have never heard of that one. So I could he'd get a small percentage of the deal when we buy it. And then we would just give him the depreciation again. And then he would just use that depreciation
to offset his sale. Yeah.
to offset his. Oh my god, that's a really good idea.
I'm not a CPA, but
Right, you're not a
um,
CPA, but I like that one.
yeah.
Is that sketch at all? Right, because like we were talking through like a bunch of different ways with one of my tax advisors, and then with the sellers, and like their accountant was like, we have to make this look pretty good because the IRS is going to come knocking. Like if it's structured a certain way.
So he's gonna give it to a church, and then the church is gonna sell it to you?
He's donating it to a church. We'll have a pre-agreement with the church at a preordained like purchase price, and the church is going to sell it to us. And then the church is going when he donates it to the church is going to give him a certain return on his money year over year for the next 20 years.
Like entrance to heaven or something?
It's out of I think it's like Missouri State or something. It's wild. Like it's a wild. I was like, how legal is this? Like, this is legal.
Oh,
Like
it's not even his church. It's just like a church that's set up to do
it's
this
a
kind of thing.
it's a random ass church that's set up to do that. Like it's wild.
Hmm. That definitely seems okay.
Super
Well,
sketch.
yeah.
I'll let you know how it goes, but because that's what I was trying to talk. That's what I was asking you about. Because that's what I thought. With owner finance, you can avoid all of that depreciation, recapture, and everything else, and it just gets paid out over time. But then you can't.
Yeah, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, the main benefit of the owner financing
Taxes.
yeah, it's like the income that you get, it's spreading that out. It's really not the depreciation. It's just like instead of getting $5 million, you're
Yeah.
getting $1 million per year. So you're lowering your bracket theoretically. But
Okay.
that's interesting. Keep me posted on that.
I will. How you structure? So when you say you need to have a bunch of cash on hand, are you is that including fees, and are you just raising extra capital no matter what you're doing because shit's gonna hit the fan at a point in time, and it's just a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, going back to the risk and all the different ways to structure it. I mean, one of the criticisms of a high preferred return and model on a distressed asset is like you're basically raising cash from investors to pay them their own preferred return, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
if the building isn't cash flowing enough
You're
to
just
pay,
giving. Yeah.
then you're just raising money to give to them, and it's. I mean, it still is like it's helping them because it's high pref is great, and because that's the first money out, right? That's the highest level of the syndication is the pref, beside the primary lender, of course. But it's it does put more risk on the deal because it puts more debt on the deal, it puts more payments on the deal, and so it's kind of better. Like I really am not encouraging my students to do these high prefs on distressed deals. I'm saying, look, just give them more instead of giving them 30% equity and a 10 pref. Just give them like no pref or a 5 pref or something, and give them 50% of the equity,
Yeah.
and just say there aren't going to be any payments for a year, right? Because you need to focus on
Stabilizing.
turning this thing around, stabilizing it, getting these renovations done, and it's going to take more time. It's going to take more money, and you don't need to be worrying about the preferred return going out the door and breaking your promises to these investors. And it's not a promise, right? Stopping a preferred return, I had to do that on the project that I was talking about at the beginning. Like it's not against the law or you're robbing them or ripping them off. It's in the operating agreement. Like if we need to stop the preferred return, we're going to stop it because we got to protect the asset first. But people get a check every month and then you stop sending them a check. They don't like that. I mean, that's not ideal. So you don't want to do that if you can help it.
Yeah, it is, and we were talking about this in Florida too. So we're like, how did those conversations go when you had to like call them up like, hey, bud, no check this month, like some shit hit the fan?
Honestly, it went fine. They were all like, "Hey, you got to do what you got to do." They trusted me. I mean, it wasn't. I think that I made it a bigger deal than it was, and it is a big deal. But at the same time, it's a business decision. It's just like, hey, we're partners on this deal, and if you and me owned a business together, and we were pulling salaries of 100 grand each, and the business was tanking, it's like, Strat, we can't take our draw this month. Like we just can't pull 8,000 out of the company. We just gotta suck it up, and it's just sort of like that, where we're gonna turn it around. The business is gonna be fine, but we just don't have the money to do it right now, and it just isn't safe or healthy for this business to do that. So they understood that.
What was the conversation in your head before that? Like, were you psyching yourself out? Because that to me, that's a hard conversation that you
Yeah,
really don't ever want to have.
I mean, yeah, I was I was very not happy about it, man. I mean, I stressed out about it for probably a week, because we were digging through the numbers, we were making the decision, figuring out like what we needed to do, what was our plan, and then it was like, okay, now we know what we gotta say. Now we just gotta eat the frog, right? We gotta pick up the phone and call all these people. And so, yeah, Yaden called half of them, my cousin or my business partner, and I called half of them. And yeah, but once I got through it, oh my gosh, man, I felt so much better. Like it was just like a weight had been lifted off my shoulder. And it's like exercising that muscle, you go through something hard and you're stronger on the other side, and you're more able to make difficult decisions and have difficult conversations next time. So it's I don't regret it. I mean, I regret that. I wish we didn't have to stop the preferred return, but at the same time, it was like more my ego was attached to it, and I got to thinking
Yeah.
like, dude, if you bury your head in the sand and you keep paying this pref because you're too scared to have these conversations, or you don't want to look stupid, or you're going to bruise your ego, like you're going to be in a world of hurt in 6 months if you don't
Yeah.
like make adjustments right now. So that was the only thing that to do.
Oh, and like, so again, when we were in Florida, Mark was like, bro, if you watch American Greed, 90% of the shit that happens is because people just don't communicate when stuff starts to go wrong.
Yeah.
He was like, that's when it starts to like go off the rails instead of just having that initial conversation and being like, hey, here's what happened. Here's what we need to do. That's what
Right.
I've
I mean, Bernie Madoff, he promised his investors 12%, that they were going to get 12%. And like if he had when the market turned against him and he didn't have the money to pay the 12%, instead of just like having those difficult conversations, he said, let me kick the can down the road and I'll just give them money from the newest people that invested. And he just kept doing that until he couldn't kick the can down the road any further. And I mean, right, it was like that was his ego. He did not want to have that conversation because I'm sure he wasn't a bad guy. I'm sure he didn't start off wanting to rip off millions of people. I think he just genuinely wanted to pay these returns, and it didn't work out. And instead of facing the music, he took the easy route, and what's comfortable now becomes super uncomfortable later.
dude. So I listened to this podcast called My First Million, and they were just talking about Bernie Madoff. It was $68 billion, a $68 billion Ponzi scheme over 40 years, and he was like head of the SEC or something like that, to where that's why it was even bigger, because his job was to make sure there was no Ponzi schemes.
it it's incredible. Yeah, there was a guy. I mean, he he was SEC like, guys, this does not make sense. There's no way mathematically that anybody can 40 years paying, you know, this return, and nobody would investigate the guy. It's insane.
Have you watched the documentaries on it? I know this is a little bit of a tangent.
I think, yeah, it's been a while, but I do remember watching something on, I think, Netflix or something about him.
I remember watching a documentary, and one of the guys saying, "Well, yeah, Bernie, we only got this much of a return this month. Where's my money?" And so Bernie just sent him more money, like to like make it hit the return. To like the dudes who were in it for a long time, they knew, like
Yeah,
they knew.
they had to
Uh,
know.
so with those investors, did you give them anything, or did you just like, hey, this is the way it is? Did you give them a little bit more equity to like soften the blow, or you're just like, this is what it is?
Yeah, no, we just said we're stopping the pref for 6 months and we'll revisit it at that point. It's been maybe 3 months now, and we're gonna most likely have a liquidation event in the next 3 to 4 months. So,
Oh, that'll be good. Yeah.
the pref's not gonna come back, but they're gonna end up making. I mean, we already have an offer from a hedge fund out of New York, 50,000 hard day one, and their offer is good enough to get the investors like a 28% IRR. And so we think we can get them up another couple hundred grand. So I'm not they're going to be fine. I'm not worried about it, but I just am learning that the preferred return, Grant Cardone, he talks about this. Like when you're first starting out, you really want to like convince people to work with you, and you got to build a track record. And so you think that this pref paid monthly is gonna do it, and it does. Like I mean, it does give you credibility, and it's a great thing, but it can become a noose around your neck. Paying 8%, 10%, whatever on the equity piece, where you're essentially 100% financed on this deal. Um, it can become very, very stressful very, very quickly, and in some cases put more stress and risk on the deal that doesn't need to be there, versus if you just did a straight up split. The other good thing about a straight up split, Stratton, is when the investor gets paid, you get paid, right?
Yeah,
So with a
you can
preferred
sell that
return,
too.
dude, I just got $1,200 from a property that we just refinanced that we bought 2 years ago. And that's like my first check from this property, right? Because we had a preferred return. And like when you have that pref around your neck, like you don't want to be taking money out of the deal because you might need it to pay the pref. So, but when you're straight up
Oh,
split,
yeah.
if there's excess cash, you split it 50-50, they get 50%, you get 50%. And that's how I structured my first deal. And because that's kind of how Michael Blank teaches. Um, and that was a great move.
Why did you move into pref then? Because now, like, I'd only want to be like, hey, you get paid when I get paid, flat out. That's all.
Yeah, and Michael
Why?
Blank is not really a huge pref fan. But I moved into the pref because I saw what Tim did with taking 70% equity in deals. So if you're going to take
Okay,
70% of the deal,
you got to give them something.
you got to give them something, and you got to give them the first 10%, and so that they're still making that 18 to 25% IRR on those deals. I mean, you got to pay the piper, right? The investors got to make their money, so you got to do it either through equity or you got, which is safer, do it through equity on the back end, like you get paid when I get paid, but you can do it on the other way where it's like you get paid for sure, you get paid the first 10%, and then you're going to get paid 30% of the profits, which is going to equal about low 20s IRR, but that first 10% is expensive. It's guaranteed, right? So
Yeah, that's very
not
true.
not guaranteed, but it's guaranteed they get paid before you do.
Exactly. So you're selling to a hedge fund. I feel like you're violating laws of the DM family. If you want my,
Well, I
how do
don't
you
know
feel
that there's
about that, dude?
I don't know if there's a hedge fund or if they're just like a small family office. They're out of Brooklyn. Um, that's not my rule. I don't care. I'll let the hedge funds buy from me. I'm not worried about it.
We'll cut
Uh,
this up. So, for Terry Summers, Jennings has something to say. Say it again, Jennings.
I don't care about the hedge funds. Their money spends just as well. I'll take the hedge fund money.
How do you feel about rates going up? Like what do you see? What do you see is going to happen? Because now that like your life is debt, and essentially, right? Like knowing debt, getting debt, how everything works in the big financial ecosystem.
Yeah, so I don't love it. I mean, rates going up means real estate prices are going down. So we're seeing that where it's just like, hey, if you want 6.5 million for this property, if they can get attractive debt and it cash flows, then they're going to pay that. They don't care really what the purchase price is necessarily. They just, can they cash flow it? Can they amortize debt? Can they ride the inflation wave? Can they raise rents? Whatever. But when they can't get that attractive debt, then they're like, hey man, 6.2 is the highest I can pay. I can't pay 6.5 because it doesn't cash flow because they just raised the rates 250 basis points. So um, now I don't know though what's going to happen. Um, I can't imagine that they're going to keep raising rates as aggressively as they say they are, or
They
as
need to.
people think.
I feel like they need to.
And I think that's why they're not going to, because that's probably the best thing for the country economically. But look at who runs the country. I mean, and I'm not just talking about Democrats. I'm talking about all of them.
The
They
old,
want to they want to get reelected.
yeah.
Nobody wants high rates, right? Everybody wants like easy money and low interest rates. And so Yeah, I mean, I just, especially if stuff like turns, um, with Russia and Ukraine and all that. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But if that continues to devolve, I don't think they're going to pour more uncertainty onto the situation by keeping raising rates. I mean, do you?
I think so. I If you don't, inflation's just gonna run away, dude. Like I truly care about the American dollar. Like I get it. We all love crypto, and we can talk about the hex phenomenon later. But I just you have to keep going. And I get it. Like it's not good overall. Like and people are gonna be mad. Let's curb inflation a little bit, and then we can let it settle down. That's like the only thing I care about. I freak out about inflation.
I agree. I agree, and I think that the crypto maximalists or people that are like down with the dollar. I mean, they're fools. Like we don't need that. That is not good for
No,
anybody.
for anyone.
And so, um, yeah, but I still think that people do what's in their best interests short term, and
That's
a
true.
politician's best interest short term
Get
is to
reelected.
print more money and to keep the rates low, and so that's what they're going to do, and you can't fight it. Like it's just human nature. Just like me selling to hedge funds, it's just human nature. If they're going to be paying me more, I'll be selling to them. Maybe long term that hurts me or hurts the industry or whatever. Do I really care? I mean, I don't know. I don't. I'm not thinking with a 30-year horizon, um, as to will my kids be able to get affordable housing? Will they be able to buy their own rental homes, or will the hedge funds own everything? Like I'm not. I'm just not thinking about that.
How come?
Because I feel like there's going to be other opportunities that they'll find. I think that people imagine a lot of problems that really never come to pass. They freak out and worry about stuff that just never seems to ever be.
Yeah,
You get hit by the train you don't see.
I'll give you that. Well, not,
But
I mean, and for lack of better words, you just mentally molest yourself and give yourself anxiety over things that legitimately have not even happened, and the statistics of them happening are nominal.
right, like that hedge funds are going to buy up every rental home in America. Like, I mean, I don't
I,
know.
I do believe that one. That one, like, I mean, they own like 50% or some shit, dude.
Do they really? Oh,
Like,
I guess I'm
that's
just
what
not.
DM was saying. He was saying like they own 50% or some crazy shit. And, like they're buying up neighborhoods and they're building to rent. Like same thing. Well, they'll just build up entire neighborhoods and just rent them all out.
Yeah, yeah,
To what a point we can't compete. I can't go and raise that much capital to compete with them. Or they just never sell, right? Like then the inventory just never hits the market. They're like, no, why would I sell? And then they're buying so high because they have a 50-year time horizon that they're thinking on. And so they can buy things higher. And they're just like, yeah, this is what we see, and we're gonna get all this other shit with it.
yeah. But then you're going to adapt, right? You're going to find a different asset class or a different type of something or other to do, right?
I mean, I don't like a certain, even though I'm a major capitalist, I don't, if someone owns 30% of something, it freaks me out, right? If your customer base, 30% of that revenue comes from one customer, you need to like move shit around. Because that
Yeah,
person leaves, you're fucked.
yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Well, going back to the rates, like I'm selling 4 properties this year. Um, and I'm still trying to be disciplined and buy. Like even
Uh-huh.
though we opened up with that, like I don't want you to hear that I'm not buying. I am buying. Um, I'm just not going to pay $175,000 a door for something that I can rent for $1,200. Like I just not going to do that. So, um, and then rates. Yeah, I mean, I'm refinancing is everything I can. Like we're refinancing another 5 properties this year ASAP. And we got hit. Like we were trying to refinance a 208 unit in Oklahoma, and by the time we got the quote and by the time we rate locked, like rates had gone up by 100 basis points. So it's just like, geez, we just lost 20 grand a year, 30 grand a year in cash flow like that.
Uh, yeah.
It is what it is. But anyway, it's like I think that you should just do the best you can. Like if you have property right now and you're getting stupid offers for it, then sell it, right? If it's something that you don't want to hold long term. Also, the rising rates could benefit you because you could be positioning yourself for good deals again. Um,
Right.
and if you can buy stuff in a safe manner and you can amortize debt, it's like, you ever seen the rental rate, like the chart of rental rates over the last 50 years?
It's insane.
It's a straight 45-degree angle. Like there's like a 3-year period where it's flat, 2008 to 10, and then it just goes back up. It's just like boom. Like that is the most stable metric I've ever seen on a chart ever, other than, people that die. I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's crazy. Like rents will continue to go up, and your dollar will continue to buy less and less and less and less. And the more debt you can lock in for long-term rates, I mean, I think you're going to be set up really, really well with that long-term horizon thinking. I do have long-term thinking about that because I can control that, you know.
Okay. Okay. All right. A couple more questions. What's the best way to raise capital, and who would you go to besides your parents? I mean,
um,
'cause I went to my parents for our first
yeah,
one.
no, I have some videos joking about how like asking your mom for money and stuff. But anyways, you know, here's the thing. Most people think about going to friends and family first. And I even say that. And I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but the cool thing about not doing that is when you go to a friend or a family member and ask them to invest in your deal, you have no clue what premise they're coming from. Like they may hate real estate, maybe a
Yeah.
landlord screwed them over in the past, or maybe they don't even like you and you just don't know that they don't like you, like they're like, oh man, Stratton, where these Bass Pro Shop has, but anyways, they don't like you for some reason. And so um when you advertise on social media or you put out what you're doing, I call it like building your fire. And when you build that bonfire, the bigger the bonfire that gets, the further away and the more people can see it. And the more people that can see it, that 1% of people that they like you, they like your messaging, and they like real estate, and they're interested, and they have money, right? You're eliminating like 99% of all people, but that 1%, they're going to be drawn to the fire and they're going to be asking you to talk with them, versus you blindly, let me just write down my 100 people in my life that I think might be interested. Well, it's going to be really hard to find the couple people that want to
Actually,
work with you, right? And it might not even be your fault. And that's how I think you do have to consider that. It's like, dude, there could be something that has nothing to do with you, and they just don't like real estate, or maybe they're broke and they act like they're rich, they just don't have the money. Who knows? But
right?
the when you build that attraction model through social media, podcasts, um, Facebook stories, Instagram, TikTok, everything, that is what draws that 1% that is your raving fan base to you. And they're really easy to close, right? That you just, hey, you want to do a deal with me? Vote yes or no. And yeah, there's gonna be some ass that's like no, but most people be like, yeah. And then you start a little Facebook message, dude. I wrote an email about this. I've raised 73% of all the capital I've raised have been raised from people from Facebook and Instagram that I have never met in person. Never met. We're talking
Bananas.
$6 to $7 million raised off of Facebook. Like, it's ridiculous.
Bro, that's insane. We for me, like, and it's so true. Like I have people hitting me up like, hey, what deals do you have? I'd like to invest. All
Yeah.
from me posting about different things that we do. Right. And so where for our last storage deal, so I reached out to my parents and they said no, by the way. But like
You already took all our money, Stratton.
yeah, you already we spent all our money traveling with you and go watch our college football games, bro. Fuck you. Like, no, go figure it out. But the social thing, I think it is the most powerful thing you could do. I talk about this like almost every podcast I put out. I think social media gives you the most leverage for anything you're trying to accomplish.
It does. I mean, and really it's not even that hard. Like to be an influencer and to get paid on a massive, massive scale, yeah, that is hard. That takes a long time. That's a lot of money, resources, effort, time. But to raise $1 million for a real estate deal, leveraging social media, you're talking a couple months worth of work, and you have a big enough platform to do that. You know,
Say that
so
one more. We just got double played. Say that one more
so
time. To raise $1 million.
to raise $1 million, it's only, that's only 3 to 6 months worth of intentional focus on your social media to get to that where you're attracting that many people to get you that much money. Like, tell people what you do. Like, hey, I put in an offer today. Hey, I'm walking a property today. Hey, we flipped this house. Like, even if you're trying to raise money for apartments, post about flipping a house or whatever, or like post about the deal you didn't get. It doesn't matter. You just got to get people to like, know, and trust you. It's just like in real life. Like, they're not going to invest with you if they don't like you, know, and trust you. You got to, how are they going to know you online if you never say anything and you're never there, you're never showing up? But if you're consistently showing up, it just builds trust. It's like, oh, and the other thing I think that why I raise so much money online, and you do too, is because we are committed to putting ourselves out there, and it's so we're less sketchy, right? It's like, hey, they're putting themselves out there every day. They have a big reputation. They're protecting it. They care about it. They're
Right.
not going to just, I'm going to wire them 100 grand and I'm never going to hear from them again. They're real. Um, More real almost than somebody that you meet, because somebody that you meet, I mean, everything you put online is a digital tattoo. Like, it's permanent, and the more you put out there, the more of a real person you become. It's weird because it's digital, but it's true.
Bro, it's the truest thing ever. And you have so much to lose, especially as you keep building this online presence, to where if you do fuck someone and your name gets torn through the ground, like, because now, like, majority of our money circulates through social. Like, in every single thing I do, social is like the base point of where revenue comes in. As crazy as that sounds. Like, that's where it all comes in. I can find a way to monetize that. So if I burn that bridge of my social, I am out lots of money and lots of leverage.
Imagine if I came to you years ago and was like, Stratton, like, dude, we're gonna put you on HGTV. We're gonna like do an expose about you. We're gonna feature your company, and we're gonna show you how you're flipping these houses. Are you in? And if you're any sort of businessman, I mean, what are you gonna say to that?
Like, well, I don't want to do that. I want a TV show. Like, I mean, if you're a couple years back, dudes didn't want TV shows. Well, dudes didn't really care about social. I don't think anybody cared about social media up until like 4 or 5 years ago is when it really started to be like, oh, wow, this is a big deal.
But what I'm saying is, if somebody was gonna put you on TV or put you on CNN or MSNBC or Fox or whatever, you don't want to do that.
Now I would. Knowing what I know now, I will take as many eyeballs as I can get.
And that's what I'm saying is, before, you only had the opportunity if somebody picked you out. Like, how are you going to land a TV show? How are you going to land a
Right.
news article or whatever? And now we have the choice to create it. There's a lot more competition, there's a lot more noise, but you can be your own reality TV star or whatever, or you can document what you're doing. You can have your own TV show about your life if you but put it out there. And that just wasn't there before. It was like the powers that be had to choose you out of obscurity to make that happen.
Exactly. All right. Last thing. What are your thoughts on crypto? When's Pulse gonna drop, bro? I'm waiting to buy my boat, honestly. Like, I'm ready to buy my yacht.
You got your yacht deposits down. I
Got
know.
my yacht deposits down, bro. Like, I think I'm gonna buy one of those like Russian oligarch yachts. Like, Pulse is really gonna hit.
um, did you sacrifice?
Yeah. Not as much,
Yeah.
not nearly as much as you. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
sacrifice a little bit of cash.
You know, when I sacrificed, well, okay, crypto, I mean, in general, um, I gotta say, man, it's been tough, especially
For the last
recently.
6 months.
Yeah. Um, I I've lost a lot of money in projects that I got in without a consultant. And I was just like, oh, this looks good, this looks good, this looks good. And you hear these horror stories of people in crypto losing all this money, and like, dude, I mean, I lost all that money, like just
Well,
gone.
what you were starting like a new project or something, right? Are you still doing that?
Yeah. So we started a treasury, and we were investing in like stable coins and putting the stable coins in different staking platforms and yield farming, and trying to generate 30 to 40% a year, which is not bad, but it's not great as far as crypto goes. But
Yeah.
and then my thought was I can build a token off of the performance of this treasury for people that just want to tokenize my performance and in a safe, stable asset. However, I hired a consultant, and he's like, listen, just try it out. Just don't dive head first into the shallow end. Like just try it out with a prototype. So we formed a prototype treasury and got 5 or 6 people to pull in about 100 grand. And we launched the treasury. We did this stuff. And dude, it was so boring, and it was like so much that I don't even know. Like I felt like I know a good bit about crypto. I don't know nothing. I don't know like 3%, 2% maybe. And I'm like, if I'm going to build a successful token that people are going to invest money in, like they're all going to be like, why isn't my token going up? Why isn't the price going up? Drive the price up, drive the price up, make me money, make me money. And I'm like, I don't want to dedicate my life to building a culture around a stupid crypto. Unless like I'm not doing that. I'm investing in crypto. I believe in it. I love it, but I don't want to make my whole life about it and try to like BS like I'm this crypto expert. So I did abandon. I still have the treasury with the friends. We're still making 20-25% returns on it, but we're not tokenizing it. Um,
Okay.
so that's my story with the treasury. The only way to make crypto and NFTs and all this stuff really valuable is to build a community. Like
Yeah.
even the utility is secondary. It's just
There is no
marketing.
utility. There is no utility, bro. It's flipping JPEGs is the only utility that's ever been proven for crypto.
Yeah.
Ever. Cardano's been talking out of their ass for fucking years.
But Charles Hoskinson has built a brand, right? And he's the face of it. And every day he's on YouTube and Twitter and everything else talking about it, hyping it up,
But it's
promising.
marketing. There is no crypto is the only thing in the world where you can have actually no product and raise billions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible, but I don't know. I wasn't attracted to that because I don't know. Maybe I know myself, and every couple of years I want to do something different, and I don't want to be like tied into something that's just like a lifelong. People have pinned their hopes and dreams on this. Like
Yeah.
they're gonna get their Russian oligarch yacht because of my coin. Like I don't want that. I don't want Stratton being like, "Hey, where's my yacht?" Um. So, but Pulse Chain, I really do think
I
that.
believe in it. I believe in it.
So Lee said in the text, Lee is our crypto consultant, and he was saying that he thinks Pulse could be 1 to 5 cents in a year or two. I mean, and that's amazing, for where I am. We're talking
That's a lot of
maybe
cash.
not maybe not Russian yachts, but maybe
That's a
like
real yacht.
Puerto
That's a
Rican yacht.
that's a
Yeah.
legitimate yacht that you're happy with though. Like I mean,
Yeah.
you're not but some people though that's a Russian yacht damn near.
I mean, I could cruise the Bahamas and stuff. I don't know if I could go international waters but I could be doing good. Doing real good.
What was the last thing I wanted to ask you? So we had the crypto pulse. That's all I got, bro. Thank you so much for coming on. What do you want to leave everybody with? Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is my Facebook group, My First Million in Multifamily. My First Million in Multifamily on Facebook. It's a free group. We got calculators, we got pitch decks, we got how to get in your first deal, how to make the jump from single family rentals into multifamily. I have a podcast, Unlock Your Life. It's on iTunes and all that other platforms. But love to catch you there. And yeah, hit me up on Instagram. Just my name, Jennings Foster Smith Jr. And happy to communicate, answer questions, do whatever I can do to help your audience.
Last thing. What did you lose money in so much? And then how do you feel about nodes?
I lost a lot of money in the Dow coins, like the Olympus Dow, Klima Dow. What else?
Jade,
I didn't do
time,
Jade. I didn't do time. Yeah, I lost a lot of time.
Hector. So I lost money on Hector, and I didn't put any money in on Jade, but I lost money on Hector and time.
Yeah, I was in Hector too. Papa, were you in Papa Dow? They actually gave us all our money back. They disbanded the treasury and gave all the money back. It's pretty cool. But
That's wild.
but you know, nodes. So I looked into strong nodes, back in August, and they were, I think, $500 or $600 a node, or a coin, strong coin. And so, yeah, you get 10 coins, you buy a node, and it gives you, like, I think 3 strong coins a month. So every 3 months, you're essentially getting your money back, and or a little over 3 months. And so I'm talking to my buddy who has, like, he probably has like 200 something nodes in strong. I mean, like, this dude's making bank, like bank. And he's like, yeah, but I bought this stuff at like $50 a coin. He's like, it's at 500 now. And then I watched it go to 1,000. I'm like, shoot, why didn't I do that? But when I realized that the nodes that they're securing, they really have no value, no purpose. They don't make any money. They don't create anything. Like, and the only reason that strong coins exist is if people buy more nodes. It's a Ponzi, right? I mean, there's no getting around how it's not a Ponzi. I didn't want to believe it, but I've watched it. Now that strong is down to like, I think it's like $100 or $120 a coin. I think that's a solid buy, but you got to realize, like, this is a Ponzi scheme. Like, there is not real value there. So as long as you get out early enough. So that's kind of my take on it. But honestly, man, I'm just sort of like licking my wounds. I've got a lot of money invested into between Hex and Pulse Chain and Pulse X, and I got some Phantom. I like the Phantom network. That's a good project. But I'm just sort of like, I'm waiting for my ship to come in, and then I'll put some more money in there.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, bro. We'll talk to you soon.
Dude, it was a lot of fun. Thanks, Stratton.
Yep. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Winning Move Podcast. I hope it helps you make all the right moves in your life and business. Please make sure to go like and subscribe on any podcast platform that you're listening to, and make sure to go follow me on Instagram @StratDaddy.